Authority, and thank colleagues for being in attendance today. And we'll jump right in with a quorum call, see if we have a quorum established, and then we'll read some brief notifications into the record and do our Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll get right into the agenda. So, Darrell, you want to go ahead and call the roll, please?
Member Desmond?
Here.
Member Lalohi?
Here.
Member Cerna?
Here.
Member Kennedy?
Here.
Member Guetta?
Here.
Member Vang?
Here.
And Member Natoli?
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Okay, very good.
Frost is also here.
Member Frost, yeah.
Okay, I will note you now that you were here. Thank you, Supervisor Frost.
Thank you.
All right, you want to read a brief notice into the record, Darrell, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Just read the notification about public speakers. Would you read that into the record?
I'm sorry, what was I reading?
For the public,
Oh,
wishing
absolutely.
to address, yeah, just read the notice into the record.
Yes, I can. I'm sorry
Okay,
about
thanks.
that.
All right.
The meeting of the Solid Waste Authority is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communities and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is closed captioned and live streamed at metro14live.saccounty.net. Today's meeting will replay Sunday, March 14th at 4 p.m. on Channel 14. In compliance with directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, this meeting is live streamed and closed to in-person public participation. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, please dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. Written comments are also accepted. Send your email to boardclerk@saccounty.net. Your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. And that concludes your announcements.
Okay. Well, thank you. And Director Lalohi, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Everyone could stand.
Go ahead.
Whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then we'll move down into our agenda. And first item is our oral reports, and we have our general manager's report. Mr. Sloan.
Do we have the PowerPoint screen on? There we go. Thank you. So I wanted to start out today with a quick update on the dissolution progress. In terms of the county code and the city code was approved February 2nd and became effective March 2nd. The county code, we have, the county department is prepared for a March 23rd board meeting in the afternoon. I think it's 3 o'clock timed item for consideration of folding in the commercial ordinance into the county refuse code. And then the follow-up request for approval of the amended code would be April 6th. And at that point, then both entities would have their codes in place. City has hired all their staff for the commercial program, and they're being currently trained by the SWA staff. And we are developing a new electronic reporting system for the county and the city post-SWA so that both entities can continue to monitor the revenue and track their accounts. City and county franchise applications will be available March 15th. Those get turned into the respective entities, and franchise agreements in front of the board of supervisors and city council and is scheduled for June. At this point, everything is progressing smoothly. And in fact, we have Aaron Treadwell from the city here. If there are questions on the city side, but we both feel really good about the progress that we're making, and we're right on target for the deadline.
Okay. Maybe just at this juncture, let's pause for a moment. We ask if there's any members of the authority that want to ask any questions of Doug or Aaron or anyone else that's on the line. Any questions?
I don't see any hands raised by any of the members.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good.
And as always, if you have a question for SWA staff or for the city or county staff, please do not hesitate to reach out to one of us. The next item I wanted to cover was commercial recycling and organics compliance. Cal Recycle, as part of AB 1826, dropped the threshold from 4 cubic yards to 2 cubic yards effective December 31st, 2020. I will tell you that as the SWA staff, we have really been focused on compliance with SB 1383, which has a set of regulations effective January 1st of 2022. So SWA staff has been in regular communication with Cal Recycle staff on the differences and getting through the waiver process. What is going to require businesses with 2 or more cubic yards of trash and recycling combined will be required to obtain organic services by July of 2021. And SWA is creating the outreach for the newly regulated businesses, and will partner with the PBIDs and chambers to get the message out. So we'll be aggressive in trying to get that out. We've been making a lot of contacts. We have in the past shown a chart that shows the number of contacts we've made with businesses, and that number, we got a slow start to that. And with Cal Recycle's urging, we've done a lot more outreach. Still have more to do, but we will be on the SWA side. We are intending to be, on the county side of the commercial process. We are intending to be in compliance commercially January 1st of 2022. As part of the negotiations or discussions with Cal Recycle, we have submitted their implementation plan and have been continuing to work with them. We have monthly reports that we send to them. Franchise haulers will coordinate the mandatory recycling bin deliveries. And I would just stress that while the haulers all want to comply with that, they're at different points of trying to get to compliance. And so it's a competitive thing. And if they go, hauler A goes to their businesses today and hauler B waits until September, there may be a competitive advantage in there. So we're trying to coordinate with all the haulers, all the franchise haulers, for basically the rollout at the same time. We want to start the deliveries in July of 21 with full compliance by the end of 21, which is consistent with SB 1383 kicking in January 1st of 2022. Non-compliant businesses will get a 30-day notice from haulers, and then the mandatory bin service will be delivered and services will start. So there'll be a lot of communication between SWA staff, the haulers, and potentially businesses that feel like they shouldn't be part of the program. But I think we have a really good process ready for dealing with those issues. We have some threshold changes for business and multifamily organic recycling. Businesses with 4 or more cubic yards of trash and recycling must have organic recycling services. That's part of AB 1826. That number ratchets down from July of 2021 to the end of the year. Businesses with 2 or more, and that's not that big of a threshold for businesses to meet. So even small restaurants will be subject to all of this. And January 22 and after, all businesses and multifamily properties must have organic recycling services. And that, as I was explaining, that is the kicker with being in compliance with SB 1383. And then we just did kind of an average right now, so we could give you a taste of what the cost is going to be. Because again, this has been part of our discussions with Cal Recycle. The monthly average organic recycling service is $102 for the smallest cart size picked up weekly. And if you remember when you're dealing with organics, producible waste, you need to be picking that material up weekly. And so right now, at the survey we did, this was $102. And so part of the messaging that we've been doing, both at staff level with Cal Recycle and as if I put on my other hat and working as a department head with the county staff and the county's lobbyists, we did meet with some high-level 1383 officials from Cal Recycle and really expressed that this is a difficult time to be raising rates, whether it's on the residential side or the commercial side. They understand that. And so, but we're going to do what we can to get through the commercial side of this, be in compliance with January 1st. I think we're in great shape with the number of businesses we've already contacted. Clearly, big organizations like Raley's, Save Mart, big grocery stores, big malls and things, they're already in compliance with these. This is really going to be more effective more impactful to the small businesses in the area. And again, we're going to have to go back, and we are working with the haulers to go back and measure the 2 or more cubic yards so we can make sure everybody's in compliance.
Can I, Mr. Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
Can
Mr. Tessie.
I ask a question? Excuse me, Doug. And excuse me for not obviously being new to the board here. Can you, and we've had a lot of conversations about residential rates, obviously, at the Board of Supervisors lately. Can you give me a little bit of sketch of what the rate increase is going to be for businesses as a result of this?
Well, that's the $102 a month.
So right now it's nothing,
Right.
and it's okay.
So let me go back because we have a couple of new board members from the city side too. SWA regulates only the commercial haulers. They pay a franchise fee of 10%. That franchise fee goes into a pool of money. The money is revenue can be tracked city versus county accounts. It's where the actual service is located. So we can do a revenue split there, which is what makes it easy for us to split the organization because we already know who's in what jurisdiction. There's no franchise fee increase proposed in this process to meet 1383 or 1826.
Okay.
It's simply a matter of if you generate 2 or more yards of trash and recycling and you're required to have organics collection, our survey says that customer is going to pay $102 a month for that cart at their business to be picked up weekly.
And what are the other, so just tell me, what are the costs for the other carts? I mean, how many sized cart? 2 different sized carts?
No, on the commercial side, it's really whatever. It's
just-
based
okay.
on service level. So you could have a 40-yard box service at, like Lowe's and Home Depot. You could have front load bins that are at different malls, at shopping centers, at some restaurants and things like that. Especially if you go downtown, you'll see a lot of front load containers in alleys down there. Those, for the most part, anything that's 2 or more yards is probably already been approached about their organics collection, but we'll have to have something. Now, organics selection for the smallest cart, it could be a 30 or 60 gallon cart. It doesn't have to be a huge cart. But when you add in it's not so much the size of the cart, but you've got the cost of the pickup and the cost of the processing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm obviously very sensitive to any increased cost to businesses, as I think we all are right now. And as far as your outreach campaign, is there anything either coming out of Cal Recycle or any state funding sources or even some of the federal money that's coming out that is going to that businesses will be able to utilize to mitigate some of the increased costs as a result of this?
And I have the perfect person to answer that question, Jennifer Claiborne.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cal Recycle is coming up with an outreach program for 1383. And so that will touch on some of these aspects that we're addressing here, but those have not been produced or sent out yet. There's not funding specific to the outreach, but we do have currently in our contract, we're contracted with Runyon Solzman, and that's who we're working with to produce organic material outreach to let these folks know what it is, why, how can they be compliant with the law.
Great. And part of that outreach hopefully will include maybe opportunities for businesses to get some assistance, either, coronavirus relief assistance or any other kind of assistance that will help them cope with this additional
Yes.
cost at a time like this.
And the purpose of us providing that monthly average was just to give you a gauge of what we're asking of businesses to do to be compliant, because we recognize we're asking a lot of them to add a new utility service, and many of them don't understand what it really entails. You know, when you say to some of these shops, you need to recycle your organic waste, they kind of go, well, I'm not a restaurant or I'm not a grocery store. And unfortunately, the state regulations, it's not just specific to those industries. We're looking at now every business who produces any kind of organic material.
Right.
So in the next slide, you'll see Doug will talk about the waivers. The law does allow for waivers. Business has to meet a certain threshold to receive those waivers, however. So currently, under 1826, what we found is as our inspectors go out to these businesses, if they can find that due to reduced operations, because, for example, restaurants aren't at full capacity, and they can prove that they produce less than 100 gallons of organic material, they can meet that waiver, and they're no longer required to have that
Okay,
organic.
Great, good.
Those organic services. However, and I don't want to take Doug's
Go ahead.
thunder.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go proceed.
Okay,
No,
I'll just talk to this slide. You'll notice that on the left side of this slide, there is a visual of approximately 100 gallons. That is currently the threshold. If you produce less than that, you can receive a waiver. However, starting July, this will be matching 1383 regulations. That's going to ratchet all the way down to 20 gallons. So you can imagine the pool of businesses who are required to recycle their organics is going to grow because there's not many businesses out there who produce less than 20 gallons.
And that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing from some businesses already that are confused about this and very alarmed about this additional expense that they're going to have. So,
absolutely. And that's where we're trying to do the best that we can to communicate with these businesses of what their options are. They can reduce their trash size. They can, there's a few other alternatives if they can meet this waiver. But then at the end of the day, we have the law that the state is requiring us to mandate.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So let me ask if, do other directors have any questions on this? It's a good time, I think, to pause and appreciate the questions from Director Desmond. Others have any questions about implementation of this program and some of the things that Doug's covered? Okay,
I see Member Lalohi. Do you have a comment to make?
sure. Sean?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a quick question. The $102 per week as a hauling fee, ultimately, this product gets hauled, gets dropped, and the product is utilized, and there's money to be made off of other people's trash or garbage. I guess my question is there any way that we could lower this amount, considering the end user will actually make money off of the recycled products?
So to answer the question, we're talking, I went back to the other slide. The $102 is what we estimate the monthly cost increase to be, not weekly, but monthly for the service. So,
okay, I think initially you indicated it was because I wrote down weekly, and that's why it got my attention.
no, I'm sorry. If I said weekly, it's weekly service, but it's a monthly charge. We did, see if I go back in time, in January of 2019, I believe, the City of Sacramento, the City of Folsom, and the County of Sacramento pulled their potential green waste organic material resources, did an RFP to find homes for the total tonnage of green waste with food that we had in the area, trying to get the biggest, trying to put out the biggest amount of material out there and get the lowest rate that we could for the processing. On the organic recycling side, the costs are, and Jennifer will correct me, but they're close to $75, $80 per ton that the haulers are going to pay to get rid of the material. And now some of them have their own facilities. The cost may not be that high, but there is a cost to that program. There's no, even if you want to sell compost, and I used to be in the business where we did that, it's the revenue never made up for the cost of creating the compost. And it's gotten, the market has gotten really, in some ways worse, because there are very few recycling centers, very few anaerobic digesters in the area. And so those facilities basically have a captured market. They have already an operating permit. They can accept the tonnage in, and it's basically they're setting the market rate. And we did the best we could with trying to get rates for on the residential side, but it is a cost program. It's not a revenue generation, and that's true, at least on the county side for recycling, curbside recycling materials. We're paying anywhere from $20 to $100 per ton to get rid of the curbside material because the market has just dropped off tremendously. And I can't speak for the city because I don't know their numbers.
And Doug, do you mind if I add, because it's an open market, we don't have control over the charges that the commercial haulers contract with the generators, with the businesses. We pride ourselves on having that non-exclusive open market to help drive those prices down as low as they can be, since there's a competitive market.
Does that help answer the question?
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Sean. Other questions?
I don't see any other member with their hand raised to speak at this time.
Okay, I had one. I just noted in the local Galt paper, their weekly publication, that City of Galt, obviously, it regulates their own commercial, residential waste collection, and has the obligation, obviously, to see to it that the various recycling requirements are met. But that they were discussing, at least the provider in their city, again, for a comparable service, at least as I understand it, just a general description here of with the waivers in place, that they were charging and they were asked to approve in their ordinance an $87 a month application for the small generators. Now, it's not a significant difference, and obviously here again we regulate the haulers and not the I guess what prices are charged, but that's $15 a month, and over the course of a year, adds up to some real dollars for a small business. Any idea what the range? I guess it calls the question what the range is, and I see Jennifer, you got your hands up, so go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I did make this poll, it was through several haulers, and that range could be from 75 to 125. So again, it's up to the business to do their due diligence and getting those quotes on that service.
So, and remember too, that a hauler has in theory, they have all the service for my convenience store, the refuse, the recycling material, and this organic material. I can adjust as the hauler, I can adjust those rates however I want them to appear, whether it's one rate for all three services inclusive or whether they're individual rates.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that pricing is not regulated by the SWA. It is 100% between the hauler and the generator and who they've signed up with contractually.
I would say the only influence we have is on that franchise fee, because as you could imagine, those franchise fees get passed from the hauler to the generator, to the business. But as Doug mentioned, we have no intention of increasing that at this time. So the control we have is to keep it steady at 10%.
And well, maybe I kind of raise another question, and just as you mentioned that, Jennifer, because we're implementing, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. Everyone's hopeful that we're going to, move out of the various tiers and into a much more open economy as it relates to, people's business conduct as well as their general movement. But is there, within the context of that, if in fact it were the pleasure of this authority board to make some allowance so that you could soften that, at least as it related to this piece of it? Now, to Doug's point, I get it that, they determine the menu of how they offer the service. But with the contracts, because a lot of those, if I recall correctly, those contracts aren't always a month to month. People have entered into a contract as a part of their arrangement with the person or the party that removes the trash and other materials. So So there's may not be a lot of flexibility. People might be able to shop around for a quote better deal, but they've entered into contracts, and as small business people, I think not having that flexibility, at least in the immediate term, and if they're looking at, on top of everything else, another $100 a month on top of their bill, not because of anything we've done on this side of it. My question is, would we have the ability to, working with our franchised haulers to, again, it would mean some less dollars flowing to the authority for a period of time, but to reduce, say, the franchise fee by 1% so that they could accommodate in this time. I guess, I don't want to get too much into the hypothetical here, but assuming that we adjusted it and that adjustment got passed on to the small generators, at least for a period of time, that we adjusted it for a year's period so that people would have a chance to recover, to adapt to this, recognizing this is an obligation under the law, that we regulate, we regulate and license the haulers. The haulers have their own business arrangement. We're not getting in the middle of that, but we could offer some relief, and I guess maybe with some agreement by the franchisees that they would pass that savings on for a period of time to a discrete group. And I don't know if that's possible or not, but I assume when their contracts allow them to adjust rates within a certain range with their business enterprises that they serve. So does that make sense? What I'm asking, whether it's doable or not, I don't know. I question that because we're in extraordinary times. I mean, everybody that sits on this board and all the other boards that we're a part of, both our elected bodies, I mean, these are just, and for us, we have a role in it, but we're still getting our 10% on whatever goes on out there, and that goes back to the member entities. And so, is there a way for us to indirectly, with some agreement, could we consider softening this at least for a period of time, maybe for a year? And I know that some of the SWA is going to go away here in a few months, but it would seem to me that would be a good faith on our part and would allow us in a direct but kind of in an indirect fashion to offer some relief as this was being brought on board. I just think these are small businesses for the most part, and not that all businesses haven't been affected in some way or the other, but so any thoughts or reactions again?
I have a couple.
Okay.
One, this would be kind of a late change to the whole franchise system where this current system is only going to be in play for 3 months.
Yeah.
We get to July 1st, and then each entity can control that because they can control their franchise fee. The small budget obviously is built on the 10%. And so adjusting that, we are using as much as we can in some of the money that we have in the small budget that's already been approved in terms of illegal dumping and some of litter cleanup and some of those programs. We certainly have a contract for the California Conservation Corps for certain areas of cleanup. And so from a revenue standpoint, there would be an impact potentially to some of the programs or disbursements out to the general fund. And the other piece that I would mention is this economy is both has a positive and a negative impact on this program. Clearly, businesses that have 2 or more yards are going to have to sign up for the new service. But if many of the small businesses have greatly reduced their revenue and their hours and their sales, they're not generating nearly as much waste as they used to be. So there are some businesses that will be able to go through and get the waiver because they'll be under the 2 yards until the economy picks up, which in theory is a year from now. And then they would we'd have to revisit their waiver. But they are going to get a period of time in there that if they're not generating the 2 yards, they will get the waiver. And so as long as the economy is still, and I can't describe a business that would be impacted that way. It's really up to the business owner. Franchise fees, if I remember correctly, franchise fees are calculated on the refuse side, not on the recycling side.
They're what, Doug?
I believe the franchise fees are based on the refuse.
Only on the trash.
Trash side.
So they
of the
pay
counts.
a franchise fee just on the tons that they dispose on trash. They don't pay it on the recycling or organics.
So the SWA is not going to get money, $1.02 out of this
No, we're
$103.
not getting, it's
Right.
neutral in that respect.
Right.
On the other hand, to your point, they can't put this material in the trash any longer, right? Because they're going to.
Unless they've been waived.
Unless they get a waiver.
Unless they get waived. But if they don't get waived and they get caught putting that stuff in the trash, then they're subject to what? To fines by us?
We
Or
will,
we find a hauler.
Under 1383, that they would be, they could be fined under enforcement that the state is requiring local jurisdictions to do. So that will come at a later time, potentially. When it comes to contamination, it's up to the hauler whether they want to work with that business on the contamination they find.
Again, we want people to do the right thing,
Right.
but I just, and I appreciate your point, Doug. Obviously there may be some other unintended results because of slowdown in business or whatever, but do we have any idea how many businesses are potentially impacted by this?
Yes, there's approximately 2,100 between the city and the county that will be coming on board.
And they're largely restaurants, food prep facilities, and
I don't
markets?
necessarily know that off the top of my head. It's something we can look into to look at the data.
Well, by the time we ask for a report back, we're going to be in the final weeks of the. We'll probably have
We'll
one
see
more
you in
meeting at
April.
40. Like the chairperson, vice chairperson for one meeting looks like here. I don't know. I mean, it's just, and well, I guess I just heads up as one member of this body, but when this comes back to the board of supervisors, I think that as we look at impacts to businesses and trying to provide some element of relief and recovery, recognizing, a myriad of factors here. I'm not going to take any more time here today, but I, for one, would want us to at least see how we might be able to help some of the businesses who, again, to your point about all this decline, but that's meant, not just in some offsetting expenses that aren't being incurred, but probably a whole lot of revenue that's not being realized, and whatever obligations go with generating that revenue. And for, I've seen statistics, and you've probably all read them, 20-25% of the restaurants either haven't made or won't make it through the, into the recession. And that's impactful. And there's a lot of other businesses that have suffered too. So maybe just a heads up when this comes back before us. It sounds like next month we're going to see it at the board. Is that right?
just a general comment though. Remember,
Yeah.
this is a state mandated program, right? This is not the SWA program.
No, I know. that, Doug.
1826 and 1383 are state mandates.
Right. Well, I'll just be very frank about it. I don't think they're very inclined to help us help others through it. So if we want to help people through it, our local businesses, our local business people, our, folks who in many cases reside in this community, then it's a choice we make. But we do charge on the trash, on the franchise. So as revenue comes to the local government entity, right now, city and county through the SWA, it will come city and county individually in a matter of 3 months, as you said, or a little more. But nonetheless, we have some ability, even within that context. Again, we know who the haulers are. They appear before us on a regular basis. And even though they're part of the regulated community, it seems to me we have some ability to have that conversation, recognizing that the state's implementing this. We can talk about who the bad guy is in the room all the time, but we're still having to enforce it. So it doesn't make a difference. The law is the law. And if we can help make it better and have it within our realm to consider that. So I'll stop with that, but I appreciate the discussion here today. And I think we deal with it often with mandated programs and requirements from the state. And, we get to be the ones that get to be the implementers and give people the news, good or bad, I guess.
And Doug, I want to add clarity.
Yeah.
So on March 23rd, we'll be introducing the code amendments at the county, and then April 6th adopting. However, the fee and penalty schedule, that resolution will be coming to the board later in May.
Okay.
So there will be a separate opportunity for that discussion.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate that.
And
Miss-
Mr.
Yeah.
Ch-
Yeah. Mr. Desmond.
Real quick, I just want to say that, yes, I echo Director Natoli, and we'll be looking for the same thing when this comes back to the board with some creative ideas to help soften the blow for our business community. And out of those 2,100 businesses, how many are county, how many are city? Do you know?
I don't know that, but when it comes to most of our program, things are fairly split.
Okay.
But that's just a guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know that we do have one member with their hand raised.
Sure.
Member Lalohi.
Yeah. Sean, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just a few quick questions. I want to make sure I get this right. So this will be a weekly service at $102 per month.
It's weekly service, billed
So every
monthly, and the average of our survey at the time we did the survey was $102.
And are we in a position to be able to, so I first of all, thank you very much for the information, and I do agree with the content. However, due to the pandemic, you're right, some of these restaurants have slowed down, but I think we all know that as we're getting vaccinated, some of these restaurants that have slowed down or even closed, they're going to try to open up and re-engage, which I'm hoping that their businesses will pick up. I'm still hoping that we can give some of these restaurants or businesses a relief for at least till end of the year, or at least for 1 year. Are we as far as negotiating with the haulers, is that something that we have the opportunity to do, or is that something that it's been done, or it's state directed? Because I understand this is a state guidelines, we have to simply follow it. But as far as negotiation, is that us negotiating with the haulers of how much they're charging, or that's completely out of our control?
So that was part of my discussion with the Cal Recycle officials. They were pretty adamant on the commercial side that the laws, 1826 has been on the books. Everybody's known about it. The businesses should already be complying with it. There wasn't, there was more potential movement on the residential side in terms of, do you have to start a residential collection on January 1st or not? But from the business standpoint, this isn't a negotiation between the SWA and haulers. It's the haulers and SWA complying with state law. And we don't have a lot of movement there. If I put my county department director hat on, we are trying to get Cal Recycle to ease up. And in some of the discussions we've had with legislators, it's been, can we get can we get this delayed for the economy to approve, et cetera, et cetera. But the deadlines for 1383 are set, and the delay of those deadlines would require legislative action. And so if you're on the city side, I would suggest talking to your city lobbyist persons. I know the county is doing that, trying to generate some interest in at least getting 1383 delayed for some period of time due to the COVID. The other thing I will mention is, I didn't read the whole article, but in one of the articles I read today, the $301 million, the $1.9 trillion COVID bill that's out there, there is money for potentially business relief. And I don't know, that would be up to the city council and the board of supervisors, but there may be a way of carving some of that out to help businesses with this program for some period of time.
Any other questions, Sean?
Just so the fee that the haulers want to charge, is that negotiated between the hauler and the CalFresh, or is that something that they're negotiating or conversing with SWA?
No, it's a negotiation between the generator, their client, and the hauler.
I would add that we're one of those unique jurisdictions in the state who still has a non-exclusive open market. Many cities and counties throughout the state have an exclusive, so they only have one hauler who services all their businesses. And at that point, there is an opportunity for that jurisdiction to negotiate those prices. But because we have an open market, we don't have that opportunity. We only do the oversight on the regulation that's coming from the state. So it's a little different of a relationship in our jurisdictions.
Will
So
we
we
be
have-
able to give all the businesses that are required to do this a list of the haulers so they can decide who they want to go with?
Absolutely, and we already have that on our website. And it's an option for them to work with who they'd like. But as Board Member Natoli mentioned, once they're in contract, it's a contract like any other contract between the business and the hauler. We do put some regulations into the franchise agreement and into our code language that doesn't allow them to take advantage of businesses. But for the most part, we don't get really in the weeds with their business handlings. That's something that the open market takes care of on its own. So I definitely hear your concerns with this additional cost for these small businesses. To Doug's point, 1826 has been in place since 2016. And the state, again, I'm not trying to pick sides here. The state is really trying to reduce the carbon footprint and methane. And so this is their goal in reducing that methane, is to capture this organic material. So it's difficult right now. And so that's where we're trying to come up with solutions and creative ways to still meet the state's requirements, but help these businesses out during these difficult times. So I think reducing franchise fees is a creative solution that we'll have to look into.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Director Lilly. Any other member of the authority want to weigh in on this?
I don't see any more hand raises
Okay.
at this time.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay,
I
Doug, go
did
ahead.
put up the chart that I mentioned earlier. This is the compliance chart. You'll notice January of 2020, we were 35% for organics, and now we're up to 76% at the end of December. So we're making progress.
I wanted to add, part of that increase is due to the fact that we did approve so many waivers, because once someone receives a waiver, they are compliant with the law. So I have to admit, part of that increase is due to that reason.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer, for the clarification.
Okay, so from the standpoint of the SWA, right now, with the SWA ending at the end of June, we know for sure that we need to have a board meeting in April. We have asked Cal Recycle to come in and present some changes to the organics. Some of the questions that we have in terms of the mandatory participation and things like that, the Cal Recycle officials will be able to answer. Atrium will be presenting a recycling challenge installation for public outreach. And we will be requesting the approval of the SWA dissolution asset and liability distribution schedule. Just for the board members, we do have May and June board dates on your calendars. They're reserved, and we're just waiting to see if we need to have them. And if we do, we absolutely will. But we just wanted to put it out there that potentially April could be our last meeting before the dissolution. And last but not least, I want to thank the new board members for coming on. I know this is kind of a difficult time to come into a board that is going to have 2 meetings and is going to be dissolved. But I absolutely offer myself and staff for any questions you have about the commercial program, the way the franchise agreement system is run. We have worked very closely with Aaron Treadwell and the city staff on the ordinances, how the SWA runs, the good points, the bad points. We have done outreach to all the haulers. So we included them in the dissolution process, so they're aware of what's going on. But between myself and staff, we would be more than happy to meet with any of you that have questions or want more information. And with that, that's my general manager's report.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Aaron, anything you wanted to add? No, okay. All right, board members, any other questions on Doug's report?
I do not see any hand raises at this
Okay.
time.
Do we have any public comments or questions on this item?
No, we do not have any verbal public comment for item number 1.
Okay, very good. Then if there's nothing further, Thank you for those reports and for the information and feedback on questions. So we'll move then from our general manager report to the one action item. Well, actually, there are more action items, but the consent items, which is the approval of the action summary from October 8th, 2020.
I'll move consent, Mr. Chair. This is
Okay.
Harry Guerra from the City of Sacramento.
Okay. We have a second? Chair
I'll
would second. Okay, we got a second. Was that my?
Mhm.
Okay, good. All right, so we have a motion by Member Guerra and a second by Member Vang. And unless there's any questions or comments on this item, then we'll go ahead and call a roll, please.
Member Desmond,
Aye.
Member Lalohi,
Aye.
Member Cerna,
Aye.
Member Kennedy, Member Guerra,
Aye.
Member Vang,
Yes.
Member Natoli.
Aye.
And your motion carries with Member Kennedy being absent.
Who?
Kennedy being absent.
Kennedy?
Yes, he did have to leave.
Oh, okay. Now, for some Member Frost is the alternate, so she can be called?
She is an alternate, so she dropped off the call.
Oh, okay. So,
But you only need 4 for a quorum, so
Okay.
your motion
all
carries.
right. Okay. Very good. All right, the next discussion items, I guess item 3 is discussion items, so it's not action. So that's the election of chair and vice chair for 2021. So this can probably be one of the shortest terms in history of this body anyway. But so the recommendation is, Doug, I don't know if you want to make the
Oh,
recommendation.
I can make a couple comments.
Sure.
This is normally the time, our first meeting of the year is normally the time where, and I believe it's in our bylaws, to elect a chair and vice chair. Normal chair rotation is a city 1 year, representative 1 year, the county the next year, and so on.
Okay. All right. Well, your current vice chair is Mr. Guerra, and I know we have 2 members of the council that have joined him. So he's the current vice chair. And if he'd like to be the preside over the, I guess what will be the final meeting of the authority potentially, then we can entertain a motion, and then we would need a vice chair from the county, although that's a moot point, I believe. So, or will be a moot point.
I'll, Mr. Chair, if
Yeah.
someone would make a motion, I'd nominate for vice chair Mr. Desmond, even though it might be only one county, since Mr. Kennedy and Ms. Frost and Board Member Frost had to step off.
Okay, so you want to bundle the motion then? You nominate Mr. Guerra for chair and Mr. Desmond for vice chair. We can do it all as part of one motion, I believe. You okay with nominating yourself, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair to be?
Yeah, sure. You know, it's one.
I would
last shot,
actually
I guess.
nominate, I would actually nominate Councilmember Guerra as the chair.
Okay, all right, good. You take about that embarrassing position. Very good, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for saving that.
I was gonna jump right
I
in,
was-
too, but Sean beat me to it. So
Well, I figured from vice to chair, it's only the normal task. Besides, it's only a few months. He can't do that. He can't damage the system that bad. So
Okay,
Tempt me.
would you include as part of your motion? We can do both as one. Would you include the nomination of Mr. Desmond as the vice chair then as part of your motion, Mr. Lowry? Sean?
yes.
Okay, and Maya, you're okay with the seconder as of the
yeah, I'll
motion?
second. I'll second. Yeah.
All right. So do we have any public comment on this?
No, we do not have any public or written comment at this time.
All right, so then we have a motion on the floor by Member Lalohi, seconded by Member Vang to nominate and to elect as our chair, Mr. Eric Guerra, and our vice chair, Mr. Rich Desmond, for the 2021 year, and with no beyond, it doesn't sound like. So with that, then if nothing further, please vote. Call the roll.
Member Desmond,
Aye.
Member Lalohi,
Aye.
Member Cerna,
Aye.
Member Kennedy, Member Guerra,
All right.
Member Vang,
Yes.
and Member Natoli.
Aye.
And your motion carries with Member Kennedy being absent.
Okay. Mr. Gary, you want me to go ahead and continue to run the meeting for the remainder
Yeah,
portion?
if you could, then I'll take over the last one.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, with that then, moving through our agenda, we're now down to item 4. We have a presentation by Breathe California, Sacramento Region regarding food waste recycling programs at schools. And I don't know who's going to introduce this item.
We have a representative from Breathe California on the phone.
Okay.
Yes,
very good.
Katie, are you there? Can you hear us? Katie, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, it just went silent, so I didn't know if I was supposed to talk.
No, that's okay. Sorry about that. So we have you here, and you just let me know when you want me to go to the next slide.
Okay, so I can just jump in right now?
Yeah, Katie, just introduce yourself if you could. And Mr. Sloan indicated you're going to be doing the presentation. So tell us about what you're going to tell us about today. Introduce yourself, and you have the floor.
Perfect. All right. Sorry for if there was a wait at all. So yes, my name is Katie Smith. I'm the program manager at Breathe California Sacramento region, and I run our school food waste recycling program that's in partnership with the Sacramento Regional Solid Waste Authority. And this program is to help school districts bring their schools into compliance with the state mandatory organic recycling laws. And we do this by implementing food waste recycling programs into elementary schools and training students how to properly sort their waste during each meal. Next slide, please. So this slide is a breakdown of the schools that we have worked with, the school districts we've worked in with each school year. And we don't have the current school year listed on here just because it looks a lot different this year. So I have included that on a separate slide that I'll go over at the end of this presentation. But each school year, we work with a set of 10 schools to implement food waste recycling programs. And in 2018-19, which was the first year of this program, we worked in 10 schools across Elk Grove Unified School District, San Juan Unified School District, and Twin Rivers Unified School District. And across all those schools, we helped divert over 104,000 pounds of food waste. And then in 2019-20, we worked in another set of 10 schools, which were in the Thomas Unified School District and Sac City Unified School District. And that year, we diverted about 9,400 pounds of food waste. And you'll notice it's a little bit less, and that's just because the school shut down early that year due to the pandemic. But
I'm going to take out to go get the food so they can do it early.
Overall, we worked in 6.
So I'm going to get mine and yours and then have you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just have to interrupt you just one moment, Katie. We have someone on the line can you please mute your mic?
Oh, yep.
Not you, Katie.
Not you, Katie.
Not you,
I'm sorry.
Katie.
In the Zoom call, please.
We were getting some bleed over on the.
Thank you. You can resume, Katie. Thank you.
Go ahead, Katie.
All right. Thank you. All right. So yeah, we've worked in 20 schools total, and we've reached over 11,160 students and taught them about food waste recycling. Next slide, please. So these are the steps that we take to implement a program into schools. And before we do any of this, we actually meet with the school district first, either the director in the maintenance and operations department or the nutrition services department. Those are both departments that oversee functions within the cafeteria, where we are mainly working with on this program. And it's really important to bring them on early on to make sure that they're familiar with the state laws and that they understand that this program is a requirement. And so involving them throughout the process makes sure that this becomes a district-wide initiative. And so once we have met with the districts, they help us identify schools within their district that need a program and could use extra assistance. So then with help from the district, we meet with the principals at those schools, obtain approval, and meet with the cafeteria staff as well, which are the head custodian and noon duty staff, to help bring them on board. And we work a lot with the cafeteria staff to include them in the implementation and design, because they know so much about the cafeteria, and we can make sure that this works within the existing operations and functions. And then we can purchase the supplies, prepare the school for the program launch. And on the day of the launch, we launch the program at lunchtime. And that morning, we do a school-wide assembly to educate the students and the teachers about this new program. And then we make sure to be on site to help make changes in case they're needed to improve efficiency and guide students through the waste sorting process. Next slide, please. So this slide has slides from our presentation during school-wide assemblies, just to give an example of what's included in them. We've also worked with Republic Services to do assemblies, and they do an awesome job educating the students and is a resource for schools as well. In these assemblies, we make sure that students understand the purpose of the food waste program, what the benefits are to reducing food waste in landfills and how it can be turned into compost. And then we demonstrate how to sort waste, what item goes into which trash can. And another thing that we started last year was before the food waste launch, we would measure how much of the cafeteria waste was landfill waste and how much of it was food waste, so that we could help the students visualize the amount of waste that they would be able to reduce from going into the landfill. Next slide, please. So this here are the components to a waste station. This is the main part of this program because this is where the students will be sorting their waste after each meal. There's usually one or two of them set up in the cafeteria. And the first one there, at the beginning of the waste station is the gray can for all the landfill waste. And then next is a green container for the food waste. And we make sure that we have the cans color coded so that students can easily differentiate between the cans. And then we have a cart for stacking trays. And even if they're styrofoam trays, we ask the students to stack them to prevent buildup in the gray can, and which requires the custodian have to change the bags more frequently. So if they are stacked instead, there's less work that has to be done from the custodian. And then we always try to make sure that the waste station is set up near a share table or cart. And this might be something you're already familiar with. It's becoming a district-wide initiative across all the districts. So most school cafeterias now have tables set up for students to share their unopened and uneaten food items on this table so that students can take food throughout the day from the table as they're hungry. And some cafeterias also have many refrigerators now so that cold items can be stored in there, like milk, so that they have a longer life, shelf life. And it's an awesome initiative that is helping to not just reduce or prevent food waste from happening in the first place, but also address food insecurity. Next slide. So as any new program that gets implemented, there are some challenges that you have to address. And one of the main challenges with implementing a food waste program are short lunches. It is required to have at least 20 minutes of lunch at schools. And I included an example of a school lunch schedule from one of the schools that we have worked with in the past. And you can see they had 7 lunch periods of 20 minutes. And this is usually the amount of time for the students to get in line to get their lunch, sit down and eat and socialize, and then be dismissed and throw away their lunch. And when you add the green container for food waste into the mix, it does slow down the process a little bit, since students before could just throw their trash away and be out the door. But now we're asking them to stop and think a little bit more about where their food goes. And then in addition to that, there is at some schools, there is limited staff capacity in the cafeteria. And so there might not be someone there to always monitor the waste station. So those things combined can sometimes create a buildup at the waste station. Next slide, please. But we have been able to find ways to address these challenges, and those are through recruiting students to help monitor the food waste bins during lunch and provide that peer-to-peer learning and so that they can teach each other about how to properly sort waste. And it also kind of instills that stewardship and responsibility for the program. Also including incentives to recognize positive behavior in students who are properly sorting their waste. A lot of schools already have reward systems in place. And so being able to incorporate the program within those reward systems even helps make the program more part of school culture. Oftentimes schools will recognize a class that's been well behaving by letting them sit on the school stage at the end of the month or give them extra recess. So being able to build the program into those incentives helps. And then also, lastly, but most importantly, would be leadership. Finding those champions at the school and district level who really believe in this program and want to support it and recognize that it is a requirement so that they can help make sure that all schools are supported and build the program into more schools. Next slide, please. So one outcome from this program has been that we've created an implementation guiding toolkit that is a step-by-step guide to help schools implement programs on their own, and is a way for us to expand the program into more schools without us having to be there. And all the resources are housed on a shared Google Drive that has resources for training students and staff and best practices, such as how to set up a waste station. We created an animated video that teachers can show in the classroom to teach students, as well as remind students about sorting waste at lunch or at any meal. And we also, during the pandemic, we created a activity and coloring book with a local artist that students could learn about food waste at home as well. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, this school year looks a lot different. And so we initially were going to implement the program at Twin Rivers Unified School District at some of their schools. And so we, of course, adapted with virtual learning, and that resulted in 3 virtual lessons that covered different topics around food waste, such as composting, the benefits of reducing food waste in landfills, as well as strategies to reduce food waste at home that students could practice with their families. We also wanted to figure out how we could reach whole families, and we did a PSA campaign on the Nutrition Services Facebook page about the benefits of reducing food waste in landfill and strategies to practice at home for parents and families and guardians to be able to use. And we also launched a food scrap drop-off site at Orchard Elementary, and that ran for 4 weeks, and we collected 326 pounds of food waste that Resoil Sacramento, which is another nonprofit based in Sacramento, helping to reduce food waste and compost it locally. And they collected our food waste and composted it at a community garden in downtown Sacramento. And after the 4 weeks, we were able to hand out compost to families that were participating in the food scrap drop-off site. And then lastly, we handed out free micro composter kits at the drop-off site and at the curbside meal pickup site at Orchard Elementary. And we also had classes sign up to participate in the micro composter kits and make compost at home. It was a hands-on activity for students to make compost in the soda bottles. And it also came with lettuce seeds for students to grow lettuce in the compost after they were done. Next slide, please. So in addition to that program, we've also focused a lot on continuing to do outreach to the school districts about state mandatory organic recycling laws and making sure that we could prepare them for implementing programs when schools reopened. We just sent out a survey recently to understand the needs of school districts for implementing food waste recycling programs so that we could best prioritize our resources and attention to making sure that we can meet their needs for when they reopen. And we recognize that it will probably look a little different the way lunches are served. We're also sending reminder emails about every 2 months about state laws and making sure that districts are aware of the resources out there. There have been webinars, and CalRecycle has put out new resources for schools. So making sure that they're connected to those resources. We also are putting together implementation kits that will have the guide and toolkit and supplies for school districts that were passed off to school districts, so that when schools reopen, they will have some of those, a lot of the necessary supplies and tools to launch a program. And then we also created a school inventory that has the list of schools in Sacramento County and their compliance status, so that we can best identify the high priority districts, so we can focus our attention to make sure that they can meet state laws when they reopen as well.
You still there, Katie?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. Okay. So did you want any concluding comments? And I'll turn to members to see if there's any questions or comments, but sound like a lot of work, a lot of effort, and certainly some really good results. So kudos to you and all the folks that have been a part of the program.
Thank you.
So let me ask, any member of the authority want to weigh in on this? Madam Clerk?
I don't see any hand raises at this time, and we also do not have any public comment at this time on this item.
Okay. Well, thank you, Katie. So will this effort continue once we resume some, school activity in a more normal way? Is it intended you would continue?
Our intentions, yeah, we have plans to still do more work when schools reopen, and at least just be helping to prepare, making sure that they have what they need when they do reopen.
Good. Well, thank you so much for your leadership and Breathe California. I don't know, Doug, Jennifer, anything you wanted to add in having worked with?
I would. I just would like to say that in my experience in the industry, school-age kids, as we saw in these slides, are the absolutely best recycling champions you can have in a house. And they make the biggest impact to a family, not just to that school, but all through the family, because they're constantly correcting their parents, their older brother, their younger kids, making sure the right material gets in the right can. And as we look to California and going into future years, and more materials need to be in the right bins, especially to keep the costs down for the programs. This is a program that is extremely valuable to get to the kids at that age. By the time they get into high school, it's probably a little too late for them to really grasp this, but at a younger age, and they'll never forget these things. So Katie and her team are doing a wonderful job with us.
And I'd like to add that both city and county staff will be proposing to continue the contracts with Breathe post-SWA dissolution.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Garrett.
this is Member Sterna.
Oh,
I wanted to send my thanks to Breathe California as well. And in my capacity serving on the California Air Resources Board, I certainly have a chance to intersect with the organization on a whole host of air quality and greenhouse gas reduction initiatives. But I feel remiss if I didn't acknowledge that and all the great work they do in so many different spaces. And of course, in this one, I think we can use all the help we can get to help educate our constituents. So I want to thank Katie and Breathe California.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I also see that Member Vang has her hand raised at this time.
Yes, Mai, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to also thank Katie as well. I really enjoyed your presentation and just want to say we definitely got to start them young. I think environmental awareness is definitely not an option, but a necessity. And when I think about this generation now, even though I consider myself still young, but for the current generation, I think recycling was more of a learning curve, because even now adults have to make a conscious decision not to throw away all the trash trash at the same place or trying to separate items as they collect them. And so I really appreciate this program, and just wanted to say thank you to you. And if we truly want environmental actions to succeed, we gotta be able to pass down that philosophy to kids today, so that recycling truly becomes just really a second nature to them. And so again, Katie, just thank you so much for your heart and your hustle on the ground, working with the school district throughout this region, and just really excited about the work ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much for that.
Anyone else?
No, I do not see anyone else with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Mike, for your comments. Thank you, Doug. And thank you, Katie, again, for your inspiring leadership amongst the generation that obviously will make this, as Member Vang said, just second nature, be a way of life, and it'll come very naturally to them because of what they've been exposed to in their younger years. And again, they'll lead in their families and in the community. So good work. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet. And again, continue on. Thank you very much. So if nothing else on this item, then that was receive and file. We appreciate the presentation. And we do have one other agenda item. I know we're getting a little short on the quorum here. So with that, then if there's no further comments, and certainly compliments to Breathe California, we'll move to item 5, which is an action item in consideration for approval of the City of Sacramento's request for early distribution of funds for city transition expenses. So there's a staff report. Mr. Sloan, you want to, or Jennifer or Aaron want to carry it?
And we have Aaron Treadwell here from the City of Sacramento.
Okay, Ms. Treadwell.
Thank you very much. I'll make this short. This is regarding the dissolution, and when the SWA dissolves and we become our own entity, we looked at our budget, and really the proceeds that we would receive from the first franchise money from the haulers really won't come to the city until September. And also history has shown that when we do the end of the year split of the funds from the franchise fees between the city and the county, also those funds don't usually reach the city until September. So once we are our own entity, we're going to have about 3 months where we would not have any income or funding. So we are asking that the SWA advance approximately the amount of money for the program to run for the first 3 months before we actually start taking in our own income. And that equates to $676,000. And there's information in the staff report as to kind of what the breakout for that is. So we are bringing, SWA staff is bringing that forward today for the board's consideration and approval. The second piece to that is previously the SWA approved the funding for a building build out that we are starting to work on now to accommodate the additional staff the city has had to take on as a result of taking on its own commercial waste compliance program. Just with the way this world has been and this year has been, the build out of that is really probably not going to start until right around the time the SWA dissolves in June. So what we are, staff is simply asking for is the contract as it stands and the funds have been approved. It was a reimbursable contract. So we had to expend the funds and then get reimbursed. We're asking is that the contract be amended so that the SWA can distribute the amount that we already has been approved for the building in advance of July 1st. So then we can continue on with the building project that will probably likely start right around the time that the SWA dissolves. So that's what item 5 is basically summing up today.
Okay, so the total amount's about 1,082,000. Is that correct?
Correct. The 416,000 has already been approved by SWA.
Correct.
So,
But you're asking for all that basically lump sum to come to the city, both
Right.
for transition services, coverage costs, but also for the building.
exactly. So that it would be able to come to the city right around July 1st.
Okay. And, all right. Any questions by members of the board on this?
Mr. Chair, this is Eric Guerra from the city. I just wanted to thank the staff for all the great work and also to move the staff report. Appreciate their willingness and nimbleness to move quickly to respond.
Okay, it's a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Director Desmond. Any other comments or questions regarding the motion and the staff recommendation?
There are no public comments, verbal comments or written comments at this time, and I do not see any hand raises in the chat.
Okay, so if there's nothing further, then I will turn to the clerk and ask her to call the roll, please.
Member Desmond,
Aye.
Member Lolohi,
Aye.
Member Cerna,
Aye.
Member Kennedy, Member Guerra,
Guerra, aye.
Member Vang,
Yes.
and Member Natoli.
Aye.
And your motion carries with Member Kennedy being absent.
Check is in the mail.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That
Make
takes.
sure it's certified funds.
Okay. All right. Then that takes us down to our last item on the agenda, which are comments from the public for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anyone signed up today to address the board?
No, we do not have any verbal comment or written comment at this time for that item.
Okay. And then for the good of the order, any director want to make any other comments before we draw this meeting to a close? Any hands?
No, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, well, this is my last duty as your current chair. I'm going to turn the gavel over to Mr. Guerra directly after this meeting, so get that FedExed over to you, Eric. And,
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
yes. Oh, I'm gonna instead of when I'm done with the meeting, I'm gonna send the gavel over to you immediately for the next, so you're ready for the next meeting. I'm kidding, Eric. Okay, very good. Anyway, enough of that. I know we've gone long, and so thanks everyone for their patience, and we'll adjourn today's meeting of the Solid Waste Authority. Thank you.
Thank you.